Welcome to System 2.
So, back in 2008, the global economy pretty much teetered on the brink of collapse. And once the dust started to settle, this huge question popped up that split the entire world. What is the absolute best way to fix a totally broken economy? This kicked off one of the most intense and important policy debates of our time.
So what's the right move, right? Do you tighten your belt, cut spending, and try to calm down the markets? Or do you open up the spigots and try to spend your way out of the problem to kickstart growth? The path governments chose would end up affecting millions and millions of lives. And believe me, this debate is far from over.
To really get what's going on here, we've got to rewind a bit. Because this whole argument, it didn't start in the halls of government. Nope, it started with the banks. Think of it like a chain reaction, a series of dominoes. The first one to fall was deep inside the private financial system. Mortgages, derivatives, all that complex stuff. To stop the whole thing from melting down, governments had to jump in with these massive bailouts. And just like that, poof, a private sector catastrophe became a public debt crisis. The cost of saving the banks was absolutely staggering, and guess who got left with the bill? Yep, the taxpayers. And I mean, just look at these numbers. The aftermath was pretty brutal. In just 5 years, Ireland's public debt more than quadrupled as a share of its economy. You can see it right there for Spain and Portugal, too. Their debt levels just exploded. And it's really important to remember, this wasn't because of some sudden wild government spending spree. This was the direct price tag for those bank rescues. So, with public debt shooting through the roof, the people in charge found themselves at a crossroads. This led to two radically different prescriptions for how to get the economy back on its feet. Okay, so here's the main event. In one corner, you have Team Austerity. Their big thing is, the problem is all this debt. It's scaring away investors. So their solution? Cut government spending. Now, restore that confidence. In the other corner, you have Team Stimulus. They look at the same situation and say, no, the real problem is that nobody is spending any money. For them, the government has to step in and become the spender of last resort, even if it means taking on more debt for a little while. All right, let's dig into the case for austerity first. Why would cutting back actually be the best way to grow? This quote here from economist John Cochrane really gets to the heart of the matter. The idea is that government spending isn't a free lunch. It just moves money around. The government, they argue, crowds out private spending. If the government builds a road, that's money that a private company might have used to build a factory. You can't have both. Now, this leads to a theory with a very strange-sounding name, expansionary fiscal contraction. It sounds completely backward, right? But the logic goes like this. If a government makes really deep, believable cuts, businesses and regular people will think, hey, our future taxes are going to be lower and the economy is going to be more stable. This massive boost of confidence, the theory says, makes them so optimistic that they immediately start spending and investing more, and that new private activity more than makes up for the government cuts. And this wasn't just a theory. They had data that seemed to back it up. A really influential study by economists Carmen Reinhart and Kenneth Rogoff dug through centuries of data and found this clear pattern. They argued that once a country's public debt crosses that 90% of GDP threshold, its economic growth just tanks. This study became a massive piece of evidence for those arguing we needed to cut debt and cut it fast. But there is a powerful counter-argument with roots in the work of John Maynard Keynes that says cutting spending when your economy is already on the ropes is the absolute worst thing you can possibly do. Critics of austerity came up with a pretty memorable nickname for this idea. They called it the confidence fairy. The term was coined by economist Paul Krugman, and it was basically a sarcastic way of questioning the whole theory. He was saying, really? You think after the government fires a bunch of people and cancels projects, business confidence is just going to magically appear and save the day? Come on. And the stimulus advocates, well, they have their own data to point to. This chart from the IMF looks at what actually happened in the years right after the crisis, and the pattern is pretty striking. The countries that went hardest on austerity, they generally saw their economies shrink or barely grow. The ones that cut less, they did better. This suggests a pretty direct link between cutting and shrinking. So the key idea here is something called the fallacy of composition. Basically, what makes sense for one person or one family doesn't necessarily make sense for the entire economy. If you lose your job, it's smart to tighten your belt. But what happens if everyone, and I mean everyone, all the families, all the businesses, the government, all cuts back at the exact same time? Well, then nobody is buying anything. total income collapses and the economy just spirals downward, making everyone worse off. So you've got two pretty compelling theories, each with its own compelling data. And that tells you that this debate, well, it's about a lot more than just numbers on a spreadsheet.
At its heart, this is a fight over a much, much deeper question. What is the proper role of government in the economy? Is it a dangerous source of debt that just gets in the way of the private sector? Or is it the only force powerful enough to save the entire system from collapse?
And this argument is anything but new. We're talking about an ideological battle that's been going on for centuries. In the 18th century, thinkers like Adam Smith were warning about public debt. Then, during the Great Depression in the 1930s, Keynes made his famous case for government intervention. And by the 1980s, the pendulum swung way back, with a renewed argument that government was the problem, not the solution. The 2008 crisis didn't start a new argument. It just poured gasoline on a very, very old fire.
Which leaves us with a pretty tough question, doesn't it? When the next crisis hits, who gets to decide the path forward? Is it the economists, with all their conflicting models? Is it the politicians, with their competing ideologies? Or is it the historians, who can show us all the cautionary tales from the past? As history shows us time and time again, there is no easy answer.